Hey guys, welcome. In this video, we're going to do a Star Citizen missile and torpedo guide for Alpha 4.5. We're going to talk about the basics of missiles and torpedoes, and then we're going to test them in combat to find out which type is more effective in the latest engineering patch. First, let's talk about the basic specs of different sizes of missiles. In Star Citizen, we have missiles and torpedoes from size 1 all the way to size 12. However, we do not have any size 6 or size 8 or size 11. So for missiles, we have size 1, size 2, size 3, and all the way to size 4. Now, starting from size 5, you still can call it missiles, but it's more like a torpedo. So size 5 torpedo and size 7 torpedo. This one is only on the ballista. And size 9 torpedo for the Eclipse and the Retaliator. And size 10 torpedo is for the Polaris. We also have a size 12 torpedo for the Idris T-Kit. However, that torpedo is way too big to fit into the hangar, so I cannot bring it up from the free elevator. For each size of the missiles and torpedoes, we have different types and from different manufacturers. However, in terms of the missile speed, explosion radius, locking range, as well as HP, they are mostly equalized for the same sizes of torpedoes and missiles. The damage, however, varies from different types. Now, for the size 1 missiles, the missile speed is 1,372 meters per second. The damage varies from different size, from 1,100 to 1,200 hit points. Explosion radius is 1 to 2 meters. Locking range is from 1.7 kilometers minimum to 10 kilometers maximum. Missile health, 25 hit points. Now for the size 2 missiles, the missile speed is 1,029 meters per second. Missile damage is around 2,000 hit points, depends on the type of the missiles. However, for the size 2 regular missiles, the damage is a little bit over 4,000 hit points because the regular missile is a cluster missile. You have 7 small warheads inside this missile. This is a very cool missile to use, but we only have that for the size 2. The explosion radius for all size 2 missiles is from 1.5 meters to 2.5 meters. And the locking range is 1.8 to 10 kilometers, except the regular missiles. The regular missiles locking range is minimum is the same, 1.8 kilometers, but the maximum is 5 kilometers. So beyond 5 kilometers, you don't have a chance to lock on target. And the regular missiles is also the IR missile, which we're going to talk about the tracking signal later in the video. The missile health for all size 2, 25 hit points. Size 3 missiles, missile speed 858 meters per second. Damage is between 2,500 to 3,300 hit points. Explosion radius 2.5 to 3.5 meters. Locking range minimum is 1.9 kilometers and maximum is 25 kilometers. And missile health 25. Size 4 missiles. The missile speed is 686 meters per second. Damage is between 4,000 to 4,200 hit points. Explosion radius 2.5 to 5 meters. Locking range is 2 kilometers minimum and 25 kilometers maximum. Missile health is also 25. The size 5 missiles or torpedoes, the missile speed is only 560 meters. The damage is 15,000 to 17,000 hit points, depends on the type. Explosion radius is 3.5 meters to 5 meters. The locking range is from 2 kilometers to 30 kilometers. And the missile health is 50 hit points. However, we do have one exception for the size 5 missiles, which is the scimitar on the ballista. And as far as I have tested, the scimitar size 5 can only be equipped on the ballista. The difference is that the locking range for the scimitar on the ballista is minimum only 50 meters, and the maximum is 30 kilometers. So this missile can be fired at a very close range. And the next missile or torpedo is the size 7. We only have this one type, helium, for the size 7 currently in game. And this one is only for the Anvil Ballista. The missile speed is 540 meters per second. The damage is 95k hit points. The explosion radius is 4.5 to 7 meters. And the firing range is 50 meters to 35 kilometers. And the health for this missile is 200 hit points. And the next size will be the size 9 torpedoes. The torpedo speed is only 540 meters per second, slower than a lot of ships. The damage, however, is between 400,000 to 425,000 hit points. Explosion radius is between 5 meters to 10 meters. And the range is between 2.5 kilometers to 40 kilometers. And the torpedo health is 667 hit points. And now for the size 10 torpedoes for the Polaris. The torpedo speed depends on the types of torpedoes, from 270 meters per second to 375 meters per second. The higher the torpedo speed, the lower the torpedo damage. So the torpedo damage depends on the type, is from 600,000 to 800,000 hit points. An explosion radius is between 10 to 25 meters. The torpedo range is from 2.5 kilometers to 40 kilometers. The torpedo health is 667 hit points. And for the size 12 torpedoes on the Idris, the torpedo speed depends on the type, is from 230 meters per second to 350 meters per second. The torpedo damage is from 910,000 hit points to 1,230,000 hit points. Explosion radius is 10 to 30 meters. And the lock range is between 3.5 kilometers to 35 kilometers. Health is 667 HP. So that's the basic specs for all these missiles and torpedoes. However, there is one more factor that is very important, which is the safety distance. For the size 1 to size 7 missiles, the safety distance is only 5 meters. However, for the size 9, size 10, and size 12 torpedoes, the safety distance is 1,500 meters. The safety distance means that the torpedo will not explode within that safety distance. It will simply bounce off the ship. The safety distance does not mean the distance when you fire the torpedo at your target. The safety distance means at the point of impact, how far is the firing ship between the target ship. For example, if you fired a torpedo from 3 kilometers at your target, but during the time when your torpedo traveled to your target, at the point of impact, the firing ship, your ship, right now is within 1,500 meters of the target ship. The missile or torpedo still will not explode. So the safety distance is at the point of impact, how far is the firing ship between the target ship. Now let's test it on this Perseus. I'm going to be firing a size 9 torpedo from the Eclipse to the Perseus at a close range. Done fire. Okay, ready? Fire. And torpedo will just hit the ship and bounce away. That's it. Now I'm gonna get the locking range. It's 2.5 kilometers. Okay, missile lock. I'm gonna fire at this Perseus. After I fire, I'm gonna get as close as possible to the ship before the missile hits the ship. Fire. And then fly as close to within 1 kilometer. You can see the missile just hit the ship, but it did not explode. I'm at 300 meters. This is really funny mechanics. You can see the missile keeps trying. It's still locking. Yeah, still locking. Still try to hit the target. I'm gonna back away to beyond 1.5 kilometers. 1.3, 1.5. There we go. I'm up beyond 1.5 now. Let's see. Now, bingo. Exploded. So this is a way of controlling us, of dumbfiring our Polaris torpedo at close range, which was really fun for a time. However, we cannot do that anymore because of this safety distance. And now let's talk about the different types of missiles. So currently in game, except the size 7 missiles on the ballista, every other size will have 3 types of missiles. And these types are categorized by their tracking signals. We'll use the size 3 missiles for example. The missiles that you're looking at are all size 3 missiles. So the first type are the Chaos 3. These are the IR missiles. So the tracking signal will be the IR, infrared, basically the heat of the ship from the components, engines, and the weapon itself. The second type are these Arrestor 3, cross-section missiles. The tracking signal will be the cross-section, basically by the cross-section of the ship itself. Whether it's front, side, or top, each ship will have different cross-section signals. For example, this hammerhead. So the front cross-section, it's the smallest, and the side is a little bit bigger, and the top will be the highest cross-section. Now the third type of missiles will be the EM missiles. So these are the Thunderbolt 3. The tracking signal will be the electromagnetic, the emissions from the ship components. The bigger the ship components, the higher the EM signatures. And the more the ship components you turn on, the more your EM signatures. And certain weapons will also add to the EM signals. In the current Star Citizen missile gameplay, the audio cue is very important. Whether you are target locking your enemy or getting missile locked by your enemy. For example, if I want to shoot at that target ship, the only time you know when you have a missile lock is hearing the audio cue.
Lock.
For example, lock.
Lock.
For some ships, you might have different audio cue. However, if I target an enemy ship, I do not hear the audio cue. I only see the visual cue, like the whole circle. If I fire this missile right now, the missile will not hit the target. It's not tracking. So the only thing that's reliable is the audio cue in terms of the missile. Right now you hear lock, you fire it, it will track and hit the target.
Check fire.
The same thing for getting targeted by enemy missiles as well. So if I'm getting targeted by a missile, dun 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 dun, you're getting targeted by a missile. And now what's coming next is very important. Judging what type of missiles firing at you is very important. For example, right now I am targeting the ship with a IR missile. I got a missile fire, 4 missiles. So when you see this fire symbol, you know that a IR missile is currently tracking you. And when you see this lightning symbol, you know that an EM missile is tracking you. And when you see this wave symbol,
Starboard proximity alert.
you know that a cross-section missile is tracking you. So the fire for IR, lightning for EM, and the wave for cross-section. Now, it is my observation that in this current 4.5.0 engineering patch, the IR signal for all our ships are incredibly low. For example, this hammerhead. If you look at my left side MFD, you can see that my IR signal is only 7.3K for such a big ship like this. And my EM is 30.4K, my cross-section, the highest, is 39.3K. I am in SEM mode. Now, if I give more power to my engine, I'd be increasing my both IR and EM. So my IR right now is 8.1K, but it's still quite low compared with the size of the ship. Now, if I target lock Luke Skywalker's ship, which is an Envo Paladin, if you look at the top right corner, you can see that the IR for the Paladin is only 7.1k, EM is 32, and cross-section highest is 28.5. So if I give full power to the weapons on the Paladin and engine and shield, now the IR is indeed increasing to 9k. That's it. However, the EM has increased to 41.3k. These signals will greatly affect the locking and tracking of our missiles. For example, if I'm going to lock Luke's ship with a KL-3, this is a IR missile. Now, because the IR signal on the Paladin is really low, so I would have to get really close in order to have a target lock or missile lock. So I'm gonna approach Luke Skywalker's ship. At 9 kilometers, I have no IR missile lock. 8 kilometers, I have an IR missile lock. Fire. And hit Luke's ship. However, if I switch to a cross-section missile, the arrestor is different because cross-section missile will lock by the angle that you're facing your enemy. If the ship is facing you nose to nose, which has a lowest cross-section. So, as you can hear, when Luke Skywalker is rotating the Paladin facing me nose to nose, now I don't have a target lock with a cross-section. But if I increase the angle, and now I have a missile lock at 13 kilometers. So I can fire this cross-section missile and hit Luke's ship. Now, if I switch to the EM missile, EM will be tracking the ship's EM signal, and the EM signal on the Paladin is the highest, 41k. And this is the same to all other ships, except when the ship is using stealth components. If you're using stealth components, you can lower your EM to below your maximum or even minimum cross-section. In that case, the best missile you use will be the cross-section missile. But for the Paladin, I have all military components, so my EM is very high. Now, I am beyond 20 kilometers now. I still have a EM missile lock. Fire. So this EM missile will travel 20 kilometers and hit the ship. So as you can see, because of the change of the IR signatures in this patch, so the IR missiles are the least effective in locking enemy ships at a longer range. Another factor very important that we need to consider are the countermeasure effectiveness. So under the ship performance viewer, we can see the list of the ship countermeasure launcher for every single ship. We have two types. One is decoy, and the decoy is our flares. And the second type will be the noises. The noises are the chaffs. Each of the decoy and chaff will have their own ammo signature. For the majority of the ships, for the IR and the EM, for the flares, the decoy, each ammo will have 20,000 decoy for the IR and 20,000 decoy for the EM, but only 6,500 for the cross-section, which means when we're trying to flare off enemy's cross-section missiles, you will have to use more flares. Let's do a little test. Let's try IR missile first. And Luke Skywalker has only one flare. I'm gonna flare one flare at a time. So fire IR missile, one flare, two flares flared off the IR missile. Now switching to EM missile, fire EM missile, and one flare, two flares, three flares, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh! 10 flares did not flare off the EM missile. Still hit. Now, cross-section missiles. Fire. One flare, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, 9 flares flared off the cross-section missile. So, As you can see, the IR missile is the easiest to get flared off, but the EM and cross-section missiles are the hardest to get flared off. So I'm gonna fire 4 cross-section missiles and queue up 8 flares on the Paladin. Fire. And pop 8 flares. Oh! 8 flares, only flared off 1 missile. And 3 missile hits for the cross-section. Now, switching to EM missile, 4 EM missiles. I'm gonna queue up 9 flares. That's all I have now. No more flares. Fire. Now, pop 9 flares. No. Oh, actually, the 9 flares flared off 2 missiles. And the other 2 missiles still hit. Now, let's try the noise. I'm gonna fire EM missiles, 2 EM. Fire. Okay, now I'm gonna use noise. 1 noise, 2 noise, and those 2 noise does not help. Still hit. Switching to cross-section missiles. Fire. And now I'm gonna use 2 noise. And that didn't help. 4 cross-section missiles hit. Now fire 4 IR missile, use 1 noise. And it didn't help. I'll hit. So I don't think the noise actually helps anything once you are locked with missiles. So the noise will help before the enemy fire missiles. If you pop noise, which is chaff, then the target enemy will lose lock on you, so they can't fire missiles at you. But as soon as they fire those missiles, the noise might not help. And as for the missile effectiveness, the IR missile, according to our test here, is the least effective. In terms of the lock range, as well as the flares, it can be easily flared off. But for the cross-section missiles, it really depends on the angle. Sometimes it's harder to manage. But for the bigger ships, you will have bigger cross-sections. However, for the EM missiles, as long as the enemy is not using stealth components, those are the most effective and most reliable. It's also a bit harder to get flared off. But if the enemy is using stealth components, then the EM missile will be less effective. Then the cross-section will be better than IR and EM in that case.